So the city would have the opportunity to purchase it.
Could add on to that. Let me just add on to that with this question is, in my line of business, if I have a $200,000 mortgage on my house and I sell my house for $500,000, I walk away from closing with less than $300,000 after closing costs and brokerage commissions. How does that not? And I think that's what you're asking is, why on earth are we going to pay fair market value and another $100,000 on top of that? That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. That's not how things work in the real world. So I would like to add that as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Johnny. That's very unusual. Usually you don't pay the mortgage. Usually the mortgage is paid off at closing from the proceeds of the buyer. I mean, that would be how that normally work, and you get the seller would get the difference, of course, as you know. So, but I think here, negotiators needed the cash in order to close on the relo house, so that the funding for the payoff had to come from another source. And so that's really more so than the foreclosure, where this kind of went sideways, was that third party that was going to come in and pay off the mortgage here, in my opinion. So if the council didn't elect to move forward tonight, you'd have a couple opportunities to get the property. One would be at the foreclosure sale, which is in July 10th, something like that. To do that, y'all would have to, at a council meeting, give us authority to bid up to a certain amount, because that's like an auction. You bid it up, and the highest bidder wins. Typically, the way that works is the lender would get a credit for, in this case, $105,000, which would be their judgment cost. Usually, the lender is the prevailing person in that type of situation, and they'll bid up to the fair market value of the property. So if you want to get it at foreclosure sale, you'd probably have to be able to bid, more than $215,000, I would say. Then if we didn't get it at that, whoever did get title of the property, if they weren't willing to negotiate voluntarily, of course, there's the condemnation procedure. We're a little bit familiar with that from before. The way that works is, ultimately, if you can't settle at mediation where you agree to a price, then it's a battle of your appraiser experts. You each, like city would have an appraiser, property owner would have an appraiser, and a jury would ultimately decide who's more accurate. Usually it's somewhere in between those two numbers is where that lands. And keep in mind, too, the city's responsible for costs and attorney's fees and stuff in that procedure as well. So,
I think in looking at this before this meeting, my initial concern was that if it goes to auction, that people who are familiar with this project, there'll be people show up there and outbid us, so that we've got to buy it back from them, because we've got to have this property. That's not a secret. If we go to auction and buy the property, let's say we go to auction, we don't win the bid, then can we file eminent domain against whoever it was that wins the deal? I just want to set this thing up so that if that is the case, we don't have people trying to undercut us at an auction.
yeah, I'm not aware of anything sitting here tonight that would prevent the city from filing some sort of eminent domain or condemnation action.
Then Councilman Bagley.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was going to answer Johnny's question, and I had a follow-up question. On the, yeah, we can do eminent domain anytime, at any point in the process. My question for you, Kyle, is to authorize you or the staff an amount to bid. Can we have an executive session to do that? Because I would hate to say right here in front of God and everybody, we're going to authorize you to go up to, $500,000 or $450,000, because then I know what the other folks would bid, and then they would say, well, yeah, the appraisal came back at $215,000, but they were willing to bid at the sale up to $450,000. So I'm just wondering how that works.
Yeah.
Can I just say real quick? I think it's fairly safe. If we do go through the process of eminent domain, we give just market value for that property.
Process that. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the sale on the courthouse steps. We have to authorize them an amount not to exceed.
I understand. I understand that. The point I'm trying to make is that if someone were to go in there and do battle against us, it really doesn't make a difference. If they go in there, if someone else goes in there and pays $400,000 for it, That's ridiculous, because we're just going to, in the process of eminent domain, we're only going to give them just market value for it. So that would be stupid.
And so, Jim, to answer your question, of course, they're very narrow circumstances you can hold an executive session. It's almost always when there's some sort of active litigation that the city is involved in. Of course, we're not involved in the actual litigation here. So, even if we filed the resolution of necessity, it would start the eminent domain process. That wouldn't be active litigation within the terms of that statute. So I would look. I'm not definitively saying no tonight, but I'm not aware tonight of anything that would allow us to operate in the shade on that.
All right. Councilman Aber?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question, and I couldn't get my button to light up. I wanted to find out from Marcia, who is our representative, if it was on the books since July 22nd in 22 that this home was in foreclosure, wouldn't that have been something you could have found and at least given us a heads up this was going down that path?
Yes, ma'am, and I did. I did.
Yeah.
I did make
I knew that.
aware of that. And and I would like to remind the council also that even if you buy this on the courthouse steps, that you still have the occupant of the residence that will be there, and she will have to be relocated under this program.
We're really just fighting over the 104 fees and lien.
Right, which you will far exceed going through eminent domain.
And we won't be able to get reimbursed if we go that route.
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
If you buy something from someone and they refuse to leave, and I've seen some examples of that, you still have the same problem. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I'm not 100% confident that we would have a relocation problem if it was purchased at a foreclosure sale, because we would own title to the property. And I just don't know how the relocation statute plays into that. I defer to Marcia on a lot of that relocation stuff. That is her expertise. So, I would defer to her tonight. But sitting here tonight, I don't know that that's the correct answer.
Okay, and another question. When the city buys property at a certain percentage over appraised value, it takes a extraordinary vote. Does that apply to this piece?
This one it doesn't, because the purchase price of the property itself is below the $500,000 threshold. So there's two parts to that statute that have to be triggered. One is the average of the appraised value has to exceed the purchase price of the property that you're purchasing, and it has to exceed $500,000. So we don't meet the two conditions.
Straighten me out, Kyle. $504,000 when I went to school was more than $500,000.
Yeah, but the statute, and again, the statute probably did not contemplate this particular situation that we have here, but the statute specifically says the purchase price of the property. The purchase price of the property that we're buying here is $215,000. That's how I would interpret the statute, and that's how we have interpreted the statute in the past. So
Any case law that says you couldn't interpret it as what you pay?
I sincerely doubt there's any case law on this very defined issue here.
All right. Marcia, any comment on that before I push?
Well, I would also, this $250,000 appraisal is 2 years old. So that we were able to justify using that report because we are using the current market values for the replacement home. And that's what the issue is about the amount of the purchase and relocation, is the fact that what is currently available on the market and decent, safe, and sanitary for us to ask a voluntary homeowner to sell their home and move to. I mean, we have to use something that's currently available on the market and is as good as or better than what they are currently in. There was one home on the market. That was it. That was available under $400,000. Everything else is above $400,000.
Sounds like we have an affordable housing crisis. Councilman Guy?
Yes.
My one last question. We were going to close June 22nd if we did it, if everything was going the process that we were planning before this popped up. How far will eminent domain push this out if it goes that route?
mean, if it was a contested eminent domain, it's hard to get any legal action complete in under a year. So it could range anywhere for, if it mediated and settled early, 5 to 6 months to a year and a half, I would say.
Kyle, isn't there a rapid process you can go through?
Yeah, there is, where we could potentially take title to the property. There's what you call a quick take, where essentially you take title to the property before you litigate the price of the property. So that process would probably take, you still got to get to the hearing before the judge, which is an evidentiary hearing. It's kind of like a mini trial. So that process would probably take, 8 to 12 months, I would estimate.
What would you assume is like your guys' fee for this, just as a ballpark, low and high?
Anything, again, it's difficult. If it settled at mediation, under $20,000. If it proceeded to a full jury trial, over $100,000 easily, maybe closer to $150,000.
All right.
And if I could add to that,
Go ahead.
that the city also pay for all fees and costs for both sides for an eminent domain proceeding.
All right, so, I guess my last take would be, do we have an estimated difference between the cost it is now versus if we go this route, or is this just, it's all hypothetical based on the lane?
There's so many factors here, it's difficult, because if you purchase it at the foreclosure sale, of course, your cost is going to be the purchase price at the foreclosure sale. If you get beyond that, it's going to greatly depend on who buys the property and how willing they are to work with the city at that point. Because if they are truly wanting to push it to a full jury trial, as I stated, it's going to get expensive on both sides, but the city's going to be the party that bears the entirety of that expense because of the way that statute is worded.
And, not to get into what we've talked about in our closed sessions, but it kind of sounds like one of those where we don't want to, but it's probably the best way to push forward and just move on. I mean, this is 16 years in the making, and to potentially push this even farther, I mean, I just see this being a kick the can down the road scenario. Councilwoman Aber?
I move that the city council approve the purchase of 611 Sandalwood Drive and authorize the city manager to execute the purchase agreement and proceed with closing.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussions? All right,
I'd
seeing
like to
none.
just,
Yep.
real quick, I don't agree with I hate the situation. I don't agree with the situation. I understand where Mr. Bagby and Mr. Destin are coming from. It's horrible. But this is the last piece of the puzzle. And I think that's kind of like, I think that's like what Mrs. Aber said. Is, if we don't do this, we're hanging it up, we're just dragging it down the road even further. And so that's all I got. Thanks.
Councilwoman Bagby?
Yeah, I respectfully would disagree. We have 2 bites of the apple if we vote this down tonight. We have the courthouse step option. And by the way, that's not an eminent domain. If we're the winning bidder, and I would doubt anybody's going to bid, $504,500 for this piece of property. There's nobody that stupid in this town. And there are a lot of people that probably need more common sense, but nobody that I know is that stupid. So, and if somebody that's outside of this town, then we do the eminent domain, and we still get it at whatever a jury decides is fair market value, which I would guarantee you is less than $504,500. I just disagree. I think you good, fast, or cheap, pick 2, and I want good and cheap in this case, because we're going to get this piece of property. Everybody in this town knows we're going to get this piece of property, but I can't support $504,500. I'm sorry, I just cannot.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be on the other side of the fence on this one, saying the difference we're haggling over is $104,000, which will eat up in legal fees if we are going to get pushed all the way to the end.
And triple reimbursed.
And that's what I
Which is
basically...
reimbursable.
Yeah, right now, we're fighting to get the reimbursable stuff. We push this on down, we're
It's on
cutting
us.
our own throats, and then we have to really give our citizens the, hey, sorry, we thought we could win this. Now you really do have to pay for it. At this point, we have a very strong probability of getting this money back through the TP funding, so it's not going to be a taxpayer cost.
And we take control of it. If we buy it right, we authorize them to buy it right now. We take control of it right now.
Correct. Last thoughts?
Yeah, we are going to win this. How much do you want to pay to win this? And I'm willing to pay $400,000 for the property tonight, but I'm not willing to pay $4,500 because you know as a realtor, that price should come out and she should take out a mortgage for her new house, just like you would, just like I would, just like everybody in this audience would. We are getting, you can hold a gun to my head, but I tell you what, I got a gun too.
All right, with that, I'm calling the vote. 3-3, I'm voting yes. All right, ayes have it, so moved.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up, item C is regarding the available pickleball options. We have discussed a couple options. One, trying to build some courts over in Morgan Sports Center, and there were several versions of that idea. One is trying to acquire some property that's currently in one of the Kelly Trusts that abuts Airport Road that we could actually use for additional parking, and then convert some of the current parking into the pickleball courts. The other option in that area is using some of the city-owned property that we already own that is behind the softball fields and convert that into parking, and then convert some of the existing parking again into some pickleball courts there. One option that wasn't discussed in very much detail at all is that there's a piece of property right next to this building in between here and the Public Works building that has been on the books slated for a tennis facility. I can't tell you how long, a long time, 12, 15 years. I've seen the plans. That could also be an option if council wanted to pursue that. We've had a generous offer from a management company to come in and help oversee an operation on Morgan's property. And then we've worked some with the Aquatic Center in seeing if they would be willing to build courts, and they maintain and operate them over there for us contributing money to them. So I think I've laid out all the options I know of, and we have some folks here to give some presentations. And I think it's ETC, right?
Yep,
And
Adam.
thank you, I'm sorry.
Push the button. Just for the record, just say your name and address for me.
My name is Adam Drysdale. My address is 1282 27th Street, Niceville, Florida, 32578.
All right, jump right in.
Brett Beatty, 4397 Hagen Court, Niceville, 32578.
All right. Take it away.
My name is Adam Drysdale, and this is my business partner, Brett Beatty. We are the co-founders of ECT Management, and we are here today to present a proposal to build Destin Pickleball Club. Some of the presentation topics and questions that I will be answering today are: who is ECT Management? Why is ECT Management proposing to build Destin Pickleball Club? How can Destin Pickleball Club benefit Destin residents? How can the city of Destin receive a return on their investment? And how will Destin Pickleball Club increase tourism? ECT Management is a racket sports club management company that was founded by myself and Brett in March of 2021 when we took over a long-term lease agreement at Blue Water Bay Tennis Center. Since then, we have experienced a 88% growth in revenue, and we have over 450 members. We are currently returning over $100,000 per year to our investors. In June of 2022, we decided to open ECT Pickleball Club. That is an 8-court facility located in the heart of Blue Water Bay. We are currently over 200 active members. We have also introduced over 350 people to the sport of pickleball. Our first tournament also hosted over 160 people last August, Our third location is Kelly Plantation. We currently run the tennis programming out of Kelly Plantation. We've done so since 2009. We have a combined total of 150 Kelly residents that we have provided a first-class tennis teaching service to over the past 12 years. So our proposal includes a 10-court facility. 6 of the courts will be covered, 4 of the courts will be uncovered. There will also be a clubhouse, which includes a small office space, front desk, bathrooms, and a small retail space where we can sell paddles and pickleball equipment. We are also proposing that we have a 5 to 10 year management agreement, and we agree to return at least 30% of all profits back to the city of Destin. So here we can see the site plan. So currently where you can see the 10 courts, there's currently a parking lot there, so we're going to use half of that parking lot to build 6 covered courts on the left, a clubhouse which you can see in the middle, and then 4 uncovered courts on the right-hand side. The 2 options we have for parking are, one is directly behind, that's the land that's currently owned by Maddie Kelly. We are proposing that we don't do this so that we can save the money on purchasing the land and instead use the alternative parking lot, which will still increase the amount of parking spaces for pickleball and all other sports. So we currently have over 25 members of staff working at ECT Management. That includes our 5 members of our management team, which are myself, Brett Beattie, Honorio Fernandez, Mark Seifer, and Kimberly Cotton. They will all be active members of staff in the operations at Destin Pickleball Club. So our projected costs for building the club. The 10 courts come in at $350,000. Lights for all 10 courts come in at $100,000. The court covering comes in at $300,000. The building, the clubhouse in between, comes in at $500,000. The parking lot, $588,000. And software and hardware to get the club up and running, $8,000. And it's important, I want to note that the building and also the parking lot will not just be for pickleball, it will be for all other sports located at Morgan Sports Complex. So that brings it to a grand total of just over $1.8 million. Now this may sound like a lot, but that's why we've also recommended a phase plan where phase 1, we could build the courts, the clubhouse, and the parking lot, and then leave the lights and the court covering for phase 2 and 3, so the club would still be able to be operational. We would be able to minimize initial costs. And it's important to note that the financial projections that are later presented in this presentation are based on all 3 of those phases being completed. So the court covering is really the game changer in this plan. Okay, there's many other courts being built, none have coverings. There's an average of, I think, 114 days of rain in Destin. So you can imagine for pickleball how a court covering can become really important. I'm estimating that we can double to triple our annual revenue with a court covering. It also entices more people to join because they know that they're guaranteed to be able to play. The court covering that we recommended is called a ClearSpan pickleball structure. They have implemented 2 of these at Opelika Sports Complex in Alabama. That's probably the closest big covered facility there is to here. Some of the advantages of this covering are there's no obstructive support posts, so basically inside the facility there's no posts coming down which can be kind of dangerous for courts. There is abundant natural lighting, so it's ideal for play. There's a lot of natural lighting that comes through the top, and there's also sufficient airflow coming in at both ends.
Just going to interrupt real quick. The covering, pickleball and tennis, a lot of players are not going to play during the summer between the hours of 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock. When you put a covering, and I've contacted about 7 facilities that have coverings, they said people are playing all day long. It drops the temperature by 15 degrees in there, so your pickleball courts will not sit empty at those times. If you just build pickleball courts, yes, you're going to get play in the morning. Yes, you'll get play in the evening, but they will sit empty. And for us to maximize people wanting to come here to be a pickleball destination, I think the covering is a critical element and it would be a game changer for Destin.
It would massively increase court utilization, like Brett said. So our vision for Destin Pickleball Club is really to create a first-class, world-class pickleball facility that creates an energetic club culture, so people want to come to the club and do more than just play pickleball, but a good social environment with the opportunity to meet new people. We want to offer a high-quality teaching service to all ages, from 5 to 85. Doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what level. We are going to cater to all Destin residents and also all tourists that come into the city. We also are a big promoter of kids pickleball. We helped get kids pickleball into the middle schools in Okaloosa County. We want to bring people into the city during off-peak times. So that would be one of our primary goals, is to bring people in through tournaments and destination camps during times of the year where hotels are less busy, where tourism is less busy. We also want to be a very community-driven club. Like we are at ECT Pickleball, we offer fundraisers for local charities and communities, middle school teams. We did a cheer fundraiser a couple of weeks ago. That went really well. So we want to be involved in the community. And it's also important that you understand that me and Brett, we have agreed that we would not ever take over a facility where we cannot be there in person. So this fits in well. You know, it's only 15 minutes drive away, so we don't have any ambition to be a national or global management chain, but somewhere where we can be there. The type of owners that we are, we're on site, we're at our locations every day, we're training our staff to the highest service. Our biggest goal for this place is to offer Destin residents a first-class pickleball experience. So our revenue streams have been split up into 3 categories: membership and court reservations, pickleball programming, and events. So you can see on the right-hand side how membership is going to be split up into individual, couple, and family. Residents will get a 50% discounted rate over non-residents. So our seasonal revenue projections are based on 28 weeks of the year being peak season and 28 weeks of the year being non-peak season, which leaves 4 weeks to account for extreme weather and holidays. So memberships coming in at an average of $53,000 for the first year, court reservations $32,000, and open play $12,000, which brings it to a grand total of $98,000. I have details on how I've got to all of these projections. I'm happy to take any questions at the end about these numbers. Next category is pickleball programming. So that's that would be led by our pickleball teaching staff. From pickleball lessons, bringing in $72,000 in the first year, crash courses $6,000, pickleball clinics $22,000, and social events $8,000, bring it to a grand total of $109,000. Events, so this is tournaments, destination camps, corporate events, and birthday parties are 2 areas that ECT Pickleball has been really successful with. Tournaments, we're estimating a total of $42,000 for the first year, destination camps $14,000, corporate events just under $3,000, and birthday parties $2,000. That's bringing our total income projected in our first year to $269,000. And this graph is showing an annual profit projection. So using a 10-year average annual growth rate, we are estimating to return between $700,000 and $1.1 million back to the city of Destin during the time of from 2024 to 2033. And my last slide brings to tourism. So how are we going to increase tourism? Firstly, destination camps. I'm currently working with a national organization to start hosting some destination camps. I've been selected as one of 10 coaches across the country in highly sought-after areas. These camps we can run up to 3 times per year. And again, we would be running these camps during low tourism times to help really boost the hotels. And we can have up to 40 players per camp. The camps would be a 3-day camp, averaging between $350 to $450 per player. Also tournaments. Tournaments are a great way to not only expose the club, but also to bring people into the city. A 10-court facility could host up to about 400 people for a 3-day tournament. We would work closely with Destin TDC to make sure that we run these tournaments at appropriate times and also discuss any other new initiatives that we can use pickleball to bring people into the city. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilman King?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I think it's great what you guys are doing. I've got a close friend, Dustin's a good friend of mine. The pickleball thing is awesome. I think it's great. I just am a little bit confused. So help me understand how this is in our best interest. So we're going to give you the property. We're basically giving you guys the property to do what you, I understand that we have some initiatives for pickleball. We're going to pay for everything to go down.
Correct.
And then we're going to pay you guys are going to take home 70% of the revenue.
So that's a proposed, so normally we work under a kind of lease agreement. So our current investors and owners lease the property to us for a certain amount of money per month. There wasn't enough accurate data for me to get to a number without eliminating the risk of, let's say, us paying you $8,000 a month, right? So it's a very different demographic and location because of the tourists. I don't know exactly, like you can see from my projections, the low versus the high, there's a big discrepancy between those just because of the unknown. So, you know, we've talked in our meetings of maybe the first year is a 30-70 split, and then once we get enough data and we can see exactly how much money is coming into the club, agreeing for a 5 to 10 year lease agreement moving forwards.
And the one thing that you would have to understand is there are pickleball courts being built all over the city now. We have Hidden Dunes put in them. I know Sandestin's put in them. So there is competition out there, but what we're proposing is put in a Destin Pickleball Club that nobody can match with the covering. So the competition at that point, yes, these places have their 4 courts and their 2 courts, but if we do it right and you do it with the covering, you're looking, this is a long-term vision that we have that's going to last. And we're also proposing post-tension courts which don't crack. I've worked at many tennis facilities. If you just put asphalt in, you're going to get cracking within the first year. Post-tension is guaranteed to put the rhubarb under. They're guaranteed not to crack. So that's going to be part of the proposal too, so we don't have to worry about maintenance down the line. So our biggest thing is the big vision, the long-term vision of this. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the country. It's not even close right now with these other sports. So people want, a lot of these places that I called, they're not real big destination places. We've got a huge destination place with a first-class facility. I think it is a win-win for everybody, and that's where these projections are coming from. We're not exactly sure how many members we're going to get because we do have competition, but if we get a baseline, we're willing to work with you guys.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see here. Councilman Sweetser.
Hi. Nice to meet y'all. First question, again, that percentage, the 30%. The projections and everything that I've looked at, one, the state of Florida is the second highest growing state for pickleball. And they're looking at multi-million, up to billions of dollars of revenue coming in to our state for pickleball. The 70-30 does not add up to me to make it profitable for us. Currently, right now, we have 9 courts in Destin. They're scattered. A lot of the condominiums had some, like you said, there's some more being built. But how negotiable are you guys with this? And also, who is the competitor?
So the answer is yes. The 30-70, again, like I said, that number really came from just a split for the first year to really just work out exactly what kind of numbers we are looking at moving forwards into a 5-10 year plan. And competition-wise, it's really, look, the difficulty that the club is going to have, or the risk that the club is going to have, is it's going to be a private club, right? So they're not going to be public free courts. So all the people that are playing right now, they're playing at courts for free. They're maybe playing at Kelly Plantation, they're playing at Regatta, they're playing at Jet, they're playing at Mooney, right? These are all public free courts. So the difficulty is going to be getting these players and offering a service where they're willing now to pay. And obviously Destin residents would be able to play, $25 a month for unlimited play and unlimited use of the club. I would say that's a pretty good deal. So that's really your competition. Now, we would really go after the players that don't play. That was our biggest goal when we opened ECT Pickleball, is we knew that there are public courts around and we're a private club. So we started to target people that had never played, because they do not have anything to compare it to, right? They haven't been playing for free for the last 3 or 4 years. Now, I think the covering would make a huge difference. The people I've spoken to, that would be a game changer in terms of whether they'd be willing to pay or not, because of the amount of rain and the amount of hot weather that we do have. So the competition is really just public free courts. The private sector is definitely growing, but obviously pickleball started being something that people can play for free. So that's kind of the battle that the private club sector are fighting against.
And one other thing, we have an app that people can go on at our facilities and they book the court. So they basically go to the reserve app, and it's the technology involved and is no longer calling the place. You can book your court, you can have it at certain times. We have certain programming that blocks that out, but the app was a game changer at our facility. Everybody loves it, and we do it at our tennis facility too. So that would be part of our. We just combine that with our other facilities.
And the answer to your question is yes, it's negotiable. Yes, we want to work with the city. We want to be returning money to the city, but at the same time, we want to be compensated because this is what we do for a living.
And the first year is going to be brutally hard because that's when you have to put all the time into to build it right. And that's what we do with our ECT Pickleball. We've been there a year now, and you have to put in double, triple time the first year to get it going. Yes.
So we purchased the property. The covering, we have a lot of hurricanes, hopefully none anytime soon. Are we going to be responsible for fixing?
Well, I talked to the covering. They said that it would take a category, I think, was all the way up to a 3 or 4. But I mean, I didn't know if I believed the guy because I grew up in Florida. I know what hurricanes can do. I know the footings and the structure probably be there. I'm not sure about the thing. Now, liability, we will cover the liability. We have the liability at our pickleball club and our tennis club. When it comes to the structure, I haven't. That's something I haven't thought about. Or, insuring. That's something we could discuss as a business, but I did not think that would come under ECT management.
Okay, thank you.
And so we have 9 in Destin, but how many are actually, what's public?
There's 9 publicly available.
Okay.
But a number.
Hold up.
What they're saying is you have to be a guest to somebody at Kelly Plantation, a guest to somebody at Regatta
Lisa.
Bay. Yeah.
We have 4 at Buck Destin.
Hold up. I'm going to ask our professional
courts.
Parks director for how many courts do we have that are public?
The city has 2 at Buck Destin, and we have 3 inside at the community center.
All right. Just getting the facts straight.
There's also pickleball courts at the Methodist Church.
Yeah, but those are limited hours.
All right, hold up. I know, we're not going to get into that kind of detail. I'm
Well,
just trying
there's
to get the
9,
courts. I
is
know,
what
I'm
I'm
just getting the
saying,
court
so.
number right. All right. Councilman Guile.
I have a couple of questions. One, if this thing fails, we invest the 1.4 million and it burns out after a year or 2, what does ECT lose? Or what's your skin in the game in this? We're 1.4 million in, but what are you guys in?
It's a good question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it fails, we could you could always turn it back into tennis courts. I mean, something like that. I mean, we run a tennis facility. Pickleball is not, I don't think, to me, it's not going to be one of these fads. It's already shown that it's growing power. I don't see it. I mean, what you mean by failing, I don't know what you would mean by like we don't have enough numbers to support it. I'm not sure exactly.
Well, you said basically a 10-year ROI. What happens when that turns into 20 or 30? In my opinion, anything over 5 is a failure. in an investment field, but you're saying 10, so let's assume 10 is a success. Anything over that, in my mind, would be failure. But it seems like we're the only ones losing in this. You guys don't have anything invested whatsoever. We pay for everything. You manage it at a pretty substantial fee, but you really don't have any skin in the game on this, from what I'm seeing. Something else you mentioned, it rains 114 days. I'm a roofer. It rains 114 days for 15 minutes. And then the sun is right out after that. So that's not 114
How long do you think
days
it takes a court to dry? After it rains for 15
I
minutes?
have no idea.
Yeah, that's it.
Guess.
Usually 2-3 hours, depending on how heat.
4 maybe?
Yeah, 4
right?
hours. So you have to get the
Okay.
squeegees out, and it's a.
And that's loss of revenue, that's loss of potential revenue, that's loss of court time,
Well,
so
then that brings up another whole question altogether. Are we looking at this as a revenue source for the city of
You brought
Destin?
this up, yeah, you wanted a second option.
So this is a revenue source?
Yeah, this is my work on your motion to make a second option for ROI.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to figure out why we're investing on somebody else versus taking care of this ourselves.
Well, we could, but they're saying there wants a club. This is all our land. I mean, I guess we'd just be out the infrastructure, but we'd still have the courts. If it fails, we just unlock the gates and it just becomes completely public.
Completely public?
But it's on our land already.
I would also say if you were to dig a little deeper into our track record of our failures versus our successes, you would come to the conclusion that with our company plus the amount of growth that the U.S. is experiencing in pickleball, that a failure is an extremely unlikely scenario.
Okay, well, I played pickleball. I'm horrible at it. Reverend Arnold over there at Destin Life Church schooled me more than one time over there. But he plays competitive. One thing that he mentioned to me is he felt that out the door, in his opinion, 25 to 35 grand per court is about the max you'd pay, and he didn't think that in the competitive level, they even felt that they needed all these extra frills and thrills. So I'm trying to figure out how we got from 25 and 30,000 a court up to this huge $1.4 million umbrella. And that's from a competitive player. That's not from a novice.
I would say just from they're saying 350,000 gets us the 10 courts with post-tension
and fencing.
surfacing and fencing.
Yeah.
So we get it all for 350.
Well, post-tensioning cables aren't that much more expensive than rebar
They said the
reinforcement.
contractor that I talked to said 30 to 40% more than a regular asphalt court.
Yeah.
Post-tension, absolutely necessary. I mean, they build
Well,
high-rise
I've
condos
worked
with
at
post-tension
facilities
cables.
My whole life, you do not want to deal with being on your hands and knees and bringing people out there covering cracks continually. It becomes a big issue. I worked at Sandestin for years, and they had post-tension. I didn't believe it, that they wouldn't crack, and they didn't crack. The courts do not crack, even when we had cold winter. So I've seen it. I've done the maintenance on it. It's something that you pay up front, but you reap the rewards down the line.
Well, let's understand, they do crack. The purpose of post-tensioning is you apply 3,000 PSI in tension through tensioning cables, and it keeps the crack closed. So the crack is there, but it's closed. All concrete, all building products are
Like in
crack
that
based
normal
on-
tennis courts, it goes like this, and now it starts affecting the balance, but on these, according to the contractor I talked to, it'll never affect.
I also think that you've also been quoted up to 75,000 a court. I'm not sure you can build a pickleball court for $20,000.
25 to 30. Yeah, that's what he was stating from the.
We're on the
competitive
very
level.
low side with that.
Yeah.
From the quotes that we've had and from the quotes that you guys have had as a city, I know that I think American Tennis were quoting you 75,000 a court.
I think
So-
it would be in our best interest if we wanted these courts to look at what it would take for us to build the courts, and if we needed a management division in there, we look at that, but not necessarily some extravagant, overpriced, show, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. That's all the questions I have.
All right, Councilman Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. I take it the covering is not retractable.
No.
How many people do you think it takes to staff this facility?
Depending on if the teaching of pros, it's teaching pro, probably I'd say 3, possibly.
Yeah, three full-time, 4 part-time.
So I'm trying to come up with what it would cost us to staff it ourselves. And 3 full-time, 4 part-time. Yep, that's going to cost us probably maybe 4 or 5, depending on what they get paid per year. And so that's the skin you're bringing in. You don't charge us for your people, although you're taking part of the part of the profit. And I'm sure that is open for negotiations once we get
Correct.
bonding. Are you guys bonded? I know a lot of times when you deal with folks, they can put up a bond that's going to guarantee their performance. Have you ever done that?
No, we have not.
You have a track record, so I would suppose that you could be bonded.
Correct.
That might be something that would make us feel a little more secure in it.
Just for my knowledge, what's kind of the basic 101 for bonding?
Bonding is like an insurance policy that says they're going to perform, and if they don't, the bonding company pays us. Yep. We even were able to get bond on fishing nets at one time, so it's a pretty wide open field. This is at Morgan's, and we don't really own that. We lease that. The property next door between us and Public Works, we do own. And that is how many acres? We looked at it for the softball field once.
I don't remember off the top, but I know that the original plans for the tennis facility was a 10-court facility with a pro shop and
So
restrooms.
you would think that would be able to convert to pickleball just as well. So we have another piece of property over there that we own. It always makes me very nervous to put millions of dollars into property that we don't own. You know, I think that your proposal definitely should be looked at, and we will go from there.
Well, the one thing too, remember, everybody I talked to with the coverings, they told me they expanded within a year. They had so much participation with it that they had to expand, so that would be a major thing. If you had that big of a piece of property, yes, go with something like that where if it does go well, you can expand.
Johnny's saying 2.5-ish on the Google map. First up, Councilwoman Hebert.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, Mr. Destin asked a couple of questions. The retractable, roofing of, getting that down if we did get a Category 3 or something, hurricane. And then, of course, we don't own the property at Morgan's. I, too, feel like I don't want to do any multi-million-dollar investment on a piece of property we're paying a lease on. And then, of course, the negotiations on employees, because, yeah, we have to cover those costs, and we're already struggling now, if I can confirm with Lisa, to keep the right amount of city employees as we have, just because it's hard to get people that want to work anymore. So it's a great idea, looks fantastic on paper. I would just say let's shift it to where a piece of property we own versus on Morgan's where we don't own.
That might have been my fault. Just throwing darts at a board.
Well, like you said, when it comes to management, the last thing I have to say about it is I've been around in 37 years of this, and when these places are not managed well, and we were talking about the management of it, that's why a lot of these tennis clubs are going away. It's why a lot of there's even pickleball spots if you're not managed. If you don't manage them right, you get the wrong people involved, they'll be successful, there'll be people playing, but the management is a critical element on these places, and to make them profitable and to make them feel like a club setting. If you don't have the right management company, which I'd say I've seen so many bad ones in the past, it's going to be a struggle, a continual struggle for you guys, having to go back and forth with different entities to get the right one.
You bring a lot of very positive energy to the table. You definitely bring to us something that would help us, and I know being on the TDC board, we could immediately fill those throughout the year because we're always looking to make sports events during the fall and during the spring when our busiest season is kind of tapered down some. So it looks fantastic. I mean, I definitely would, like I said, look into putting it on property that we own and maybe restructure that.
For sure. I would have no problem doing it. We can meet with Bobby again. I guess we'll sit down again with the
round 3.
And stuff.
All right, and then Councilman Bagley.
Hey, thank y'all for coming. I appreciate your presentation. I think we answered the wind resistance question I had. I'd cover them all, probably. I wanted the pool to be covered when we were building it, but we didn't have enough money. The insurance does kind of question. But to further define this problem, we have 2 issues. One's a facility and one's a management. Okay, and we've gotten a proposal for a facility at the Matty Kelly location. We've got a proposal for a facility over here at the park. We've somewhere, I'll go back and try to find it. We had a proposal for a facility, tennis facility over here across on the other side of the parking lot. So, you know, we're almost in an RFI or RFP position where we go. We want 8 courts. You know, we need to know what's the size we want to deal with. Depends on where it gets put. How many courts we want. Do we want them covered? Do we want post-stitch and cables on the courts? You know, I would, but that could also be something that you know, value engineer out on some of the courts or whatever. And, you know, the number, location, all those things. And then we got to decide on the management, because we got one group over here that has some sort of relation with Matty Kelly. We've got y'all, we've got our in-house folks. And so somebody needs to just, I'm one of these, you know, I'm an engineer, or my training's in engineering. So I like nice matrices, you know, and here's the requirements, and here's what we're doing, and here's the cost of each of those, and y'all are going to build 6 courts, and they're going to be, you know, 4 of them be covered or whatever, because it's got a cash flow, okay, because y'all were sitting out here when we had the conversation about the property. Finances are tantamount in this city because it's not our money. It's their money. It's your money. Well, y'all live in Niceville, but you get my point. So I would like for the city manager and the Parks and Recs folks to bring us back, look at all these, and, you know, maybe we do a 2-step. We identify our requirements. Okay, what do we want to do? Other than just go grab ideas and get proposals from, I'm sure we could get 2 more proposals on pickleball courts, and we could put some down, you know, in my neighborhood or something. We've got some space, but what do we want, okay, and then who we want to run it? You know, who's going to build it? Who's going to run it? What's that relation? The insurance, bonding, you know, because, yeah, I'm with Mr. Destin. We should have a performance bond. You know, you should have some skin in this game, and that's that performance bond. If you don't perform and generate $8,000 a month, then that agency ought to pay us the difference in the $8,000 a month, or whatever number we agree on. I think y'all understand where I'm going. So I don't know how best to do that. I would entertain ideas from the city manager or Lisa, you know, on, we can keep having people come every other week and give us proposals, but at some point we just need to decide what the heck we're going to do and do it. And
So, and I'll start that conversation with the minimal viable product so that we could entertain even regional small tournaments. I think is where there's profitability when you hit an X factor of, we were talking 8, 10 is kind of as small as we could get to even be on a blip of a local level to kind of have this profitability outside of just residential.
Okay, and reclaiming my time here, that may be the first question we need to ask is what's our intent? Mm-hmm. Because we started out, our intent was not to have a world-class facility. Our intent was not to have tournaments. Our intent was to provide a place for citizens, people that live and pay taxes here, to play pickleball. And, you know, if the snowbirds want to do it and it's too cold for native Floridians or long-term Floridians, fine, let them go use it and pay to use it. But it's to provide facilities for our citizens. So I'm just trying to, I'm not saying I don't want a world-class facility. I'm not saying I don't want a tournament. And I'm sure the TDC would be more than glad to help us pay for a world-class facility because it would generate room nights and all that. I understand all that. But what are we trying to do here? And then what's the best way to do that? And who's the best person to manage that? If somebody can help me answer those questions, I'm willing to, you know, I don't play pickleball, but I'd love to learn because I'm getting at that age where that's probably the only thing I will be able to do. All right.
I don't think he's actually looking for an answer, so I'm gonna push it to Councilman King.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I thought that we were in the and I appreciate you guys being here. I think it's awesome. I thought we were looking for somewhere for people to just go play pickleball. I think that we've got if we are going to do a world-class facility, I think Mr. Bagby hit the nail on the head. We need to have an RFP or request for proposal. If it is as big and popular and growing as fast as we all, are saying that it is, there's got to be more guys like you out there that are going to come compete for us, for our deal. I think that I'd like to reiterate the point that we're going to provide y'all with the land, we're going to provide y'all with all the funding, and then you see the conundrum here is if I was to give you a commercial office space and just give it to you, who would be entitled to the majority of the revenue?
Well, that's why we talked about the year. We need a baseline because without a baseline, it's hard just to say, okay, we're going to give you a 10-year lease at this amount of money. We're not exactly, nobody has a crystal ball to say exactly how many members we will have joining because we are competing against Regatta and Kelly and Hidden Dunes and Sandestin. So we needed a little bit more of a baseline. That's where we were coming from with that, but it's definitely negotiable. Yeah,
I think I understand where you're coming from. I think we're a little flip-flopped here. But I think it's great. I like the proposal. I think that if we're going to go that route, we need to we need to put out for RFP and see who else comes to the table and let them do the negotiating for us.
And I think it's critical you guys put it on your land. That was my biggest thing. You own the land, like you said. That's your land. You guys control it. That to me was a major selling point for us.
Yeah, we thought Morgan Sports Complex was your land.
We were confused.
We were sorting it into the part of our land, and then we bled into theirs a little bit.
It sort of is, and it kind of looks that way. It's not ours.
Okay. For the next 35 years, it's back under our control.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, if we're going back to the drawing board, what are we looking for? And I know you're saying to put it on us. Well, we brought you everything I could possibly come up with. And that's probably why it seems a little bit a little sporadic is probably because it's my idea. So I'll admit to that. So we started with $400,000 at the Aquatic Center on a Mattie Kelly Art Foundation land that's leased to the Aquatic Center. They would run it, and we don't get a dime. Here's $400,000, and they can put as many courts they think is right. 10. I don't think they're willing to put all 10 up based on the last one. I don't want to put words in y'all's mouth. But we can surely block it all out and give you exactly what each deal looks like, and we can play deal or no deal up here. What deal is best for y'all? Our land, ROI.
Find the land. Does everybody agree with that? We got to find a spot before we get RFQs. We have to have a location. Yes.
And we could come back with some numbers for you guys if you give us an amount of acreage and how many courts you need.
You tell us how many acres we need.
Well, the 2.5 that you're talking about over there is plenty big enough. That when you said that, I was like, wow, that's huge. So,
and it might just be worth stating now that the requirements to host a major pickleball event, which is where TDC would see a huge impact, is 16 courts. So 16 courts, also with a stadium court that needs to sit at least 500 people. There you're getting into territory of running PPA, APP, and USA pickleball events that average probably between 1,000 and 1,500 participants for a weekend.
And Adam knows this. He's playing them every week, and he's a top 100 in the world right now in pickleball. So he goes to these, so he's getting ideas as he travels and plays pickleball right now.
So that was with this plan, it was like, okay, if we do well over like 3-4 years, we're only 6 courts away from really making a huge impact on tourism at down times.
All right, so is there a yes or no up here? If we go to 16, is there a just no off the bat, we don't want 16 courts? Only time I get to talk to y'all.
We're only limited by the money that we have, and I don't want to discount the proposal from the.
No, not at all. I think we have 400,000, and if we're ready for courts and we want 400,000 to go to courts, then I think that is our minimal viable product option that is good for pickleball to play at a local level.
Bang for the buck and something we can do today.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Teresa Abraham.
Well, that was my question is, this is a fantastic idea, wonderful plan. 1 point some odd million later, couple years before it's done. I want our residents to start being able to play now. I mean, they've already been waiting on us to get pieces of property built, and it's like, okay, we kind of thought we were moving in that direction, that by summer, we'd be on a plot of land, and here's the money, fix it, make it happen, take care of our citizens. We could always go back to TDC and maybe, okay, now that money went there, let's see what we can get from TDC, because we can make Destin a pickleball destination and take this to the TDC conference, you know, bring it to our council, because I think it would be wonderful to have that. But I don't want to drag this out any longer than we already have, because the people that live here want to play, and we don't have enough courts now, right now. So that's, my thoughts are, do what we were going to do and expand after we get more money.
All right, Councilman Bagby?
Yeah, I guess my thoughts are a little bit like Teresa's, in that we have 400,000. To me, that's my top line. We ought to be able to provide a service for our citizens for 400,000. Now, if we want to phase this in and we want to say that's the spot, build 8 courts, cover 4 of them or whatever, and you guys want to work with Teresa and the TDC and get their money, and they want to put in another $500,000 or another $1.2 million or whatever the heck they want to put in to build 10 more courts so that we have 18 courts and one of them's a stadium court. I don't care. I'm here for the people that live here, okay, and pay taxes here, and they need courts now, and we've identified 400,000. You know, if y'all want to help us, give us ideas on the best courts to build or how to build courts or how to arrange them out there or those, that's great. Assemble the Parks and Rec Committee. Y'all make presentations, y'all sit there, y'all workshop it, you figure it out. 400,000, I want courts now. That's where I am. And if we can expand that in phase 2 or phase 3 or whatever, and I want some of them covered. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I do see the utility in having some covered. But I want them now. And then we can figure out the management. If it's only 4 courts or 6 courts, maybe we manage it. But at some point, one of y'all come in and manage it, that's fine. But that's where I am today.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I can offer a suggestion, I think myself and staff, if you'll give us, we can bring it back we only have 1 meeting in July, so we can bring it back in July. I can put together a matrix of all the current options available so we can just go side by side. And if we're operating at the $400,000 level, then that gives me, I need something to work from in order to know how to make the comparisons. And we can then determine how many courts we could get, and we can do internal payroll versus external payroll, and we can do all that and bring it back.
All right. Gotta love government. It's the best.
Is the 400,000 already an approved budget?
Yes, from 21.
Already approved, all right.
Yeah.
Is that going to build the 10 courts with the fences and the whole facility, or do you?
No, this is going over, the 400,000 would go to them.
Right.
They would take it, they would fix it, they'd make it happen if we approved it.
Okay.
And then I would really help you guys get the TDC on board. We go full pelt on this side of our, property.
For sure.
All right. Y'all want to throw anything into the mix? All right, good deal. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate it.
Center.
Keep moving, sir? Yes, sir. All right. Next up, we just had an informational item that was requested by council for staff to bring back an assistant city manager job description. Jamie and I put our heads together and came up with the one in your packet. It doesn't require a vote, and probably, and I hope I'm not going out of bounds, probably should not have a vote. But I don't know what comments that the council wanted to make on it, if any.
Councilman Bagby.
Well, it looks like Jill Silverboard is coming back, but she hadn't been here for 20-something years. It looks like her job description. Where are we in this process? Have we told you to stop or pause, or are we still advertising? And how many names we have? We probably have to add, there she is. Okay.
There's been no official action from council telling us to stop.
Okay.
We have been instructed to bring forward an amendment to, that could, if voted on, eliminate the deputy position from the budget. And I'll let Jamie, if she's got anything else on that.
We have 25 applicants right now, and we're still reviewing applications. We haven't really moved forward with anything yet.
Okay, so when are we going to screen it and interview them and do all that? I mean, we're taking a long process and we're just making it even longer. And it just looks like we're not on top of this, I would guess, would be the phrase I would use. So when are we closing the advertisement? Be my first question.
It doesn't have a closing date right now. Typically, what we'll do is we wait till we get a strong applicant pool, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay, and out of 25 applicants, we don't have a strong, we don't have at least 5 that are qualified to come interview?
We do. We're still getting applicants every day, though, so we're just reviewing them as they come in. Right now, I would say I would have probably 8 that I would consider interviewing.
Yeah, okay, I would say when you hit 10, cut it off, interview 5, or something like that. I mean, I'll let you, this is your business. I understand, I've read the charter, so I know exactly what our role is here, but I'm just saying, also have been certified in HR, and I know at some point you got to fish, okay? And so I would just ask y'all to, at some point, maybe by the next meeting, update us on where we are on this process. Because we ought to be screening and winnowing down, and at least telling 15 people, thank you, but we've decided to go a different direction.
Councilman Destin.
I suppose that we have this before us tonight so that we have the opportunity to discuss it with the city manager. And not necessarily at this meeting, but at least on a one-on-one basis. And so I appreciate bringing it forward, and I will certainly do that.
Right. Councilwoman Aber.
Has the job description been updated for those that are applying, Jamie, that it is an assistant versus a deputy?
No, right now we still have the deputy city manager vacant and approved, so that's the job description. If there's any changes, then I'll make adjustments at that point.
Yeah, when you interview them, you're going to let them know that the job title is assistant, not deputy?
It's a brand new job description, so I would reach out to the applicants and let them know that we're going to re-advertise for that position. There's different minimum qualifications, so that would open the doors for additional applicants at that time.
Then you might need to start over, Jamie.
Yes, I would re-advertise once Lance approves a new job description. If that's the direction he wants to go.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I thought. He brought it to us tonight. We asked for this. And if this is the job description for that position, then that would be what he's approving as the assistant. And then tomorrow, re-engage with the applicants that you have, 20 or 30, because you might have 15 of them drop right away.
Yes, I would reach out to each of the applicants and let them know that we're re-advertising with a new job description.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Teresa on this. I would close the deputy and re-advertise it as an assistant city manager. You're just, at some point, you're going to have to close the deputy city manager slot. And although I'm hopeful that we will at least keep an assistant city manager, that slot that we've had for at least the 24 years I've lived in this town, probably that would be the best thing for y'all to do, but that's y'all's deal. You do what you want to do, but that would just be my advice to you.
All right, Councilman Gao.
What page in the packet is, I'm having?
227.
227, okay. 227. All right, let me, just a second here. So in here, it says a salary range. Is that under this 227? Under the action item?
It is. It's
Yeah, it
alongside
is.
the grade on there.
There is an action item.
Oh, that's the motion that made this.
Very top grade.
You want me just to read the
Yeah, read the
range?
salary range.
The range is 90,477 to 153,000.
53,000. Okay, and that's for the assistant, not for the deputy, correct?
That's correct. We stepped it down.
Okay, thank you. All I have.
All right. I'm seeing no other lights. Anything else? Seeing none? All right, back to you.
All right, thank you, sir. Get back here. The Harbor Carrying Capacity Study and the Harbor Capacity Steering Committee final recommendations and prioritized list is before the council for approval.
Yep. Jump in.
I think Teresa and I handle, for those who were not at the Harbor Capacity Study presentation, we agreed to pick the low-hanging fruit, which we did at the last meeting. Teresa's working with the staff, working on getting the county to do a moratorium. 3 of the recommendations, I can't remember how many we passed last time besides that I brought forward, but I think it was 3 or 4. I think the only thing that we didn't do that would be good tonight might be the no moorage signs, because some of these recommendations we don't have the ability or the authority to make. So while they're nice, that's good, but we've indefinitely approved the extension of the committee. We've the petroleum absorption in the stormwater. We already have those fuel water separators, I think 4 of them that lead down to the harbor and stuff. So I'm not sure where the where the committee wanted it put. We've approved going forward with the CAP 107. We will do a 5-year moratorium on the livery vessels. The reach out to the county, which Teresa's done, create a safety video, which Teresa and I don't know if the mayor with John's all over it, so we're doing those things. A more robust water quality monitoring system. I mean, we have multiple entities monitoring our water quality, but I'm more than willing for somebody from the committee to come say, okay, we want you specifically to hire Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance to do 2 more places in the harbor or whatever. The slip configurations, even the core study says we don't have that ability, which we don't have that ability. And I'm not sure why we would do that, because that's private property. That's their job, is to maximize or optimize their number of slips and then keep the current committee in place. So we've done all the low-hanging fruit, but if they want to come back and make a specific presentation to the council, I'm more than willing to entertain any committee coming before the council making a recommendation.
Awesome. And I'm just going to throw it in this topic of the idea of designating the harbor a mooring ball harbor, and obviously I would want to get some more information. I've been talking to Alex Fogg, and he sent me something that the University of Florida has given me as a PowerPoint as far as, hey, here's, the 101 kind of, this is why you would, and the qualifications and what it does and doesn't do. And I think a lot of it turns into helping us solve the derelict vessels out there and just kind of creating organization for those who would like to stay overnight in their boat. They hook up, they're making sure that they're out of the channel, and that way that gives us a little bit more teeth when it comes to code enforcement, having a boat out there versus having anything else. So I guess I didn't know where anyone's thoughts were on potentially even entertaining the information gathering of turning the Destin Harbor into a mooring ball harbor. I don't know if anyone had some previous thoughts on that or has any other back information on that, or if it's worth just asking Alex to come in and give a presentation to see if it's something that would fix it, but I definitely don't want to try to solve a problem we don't have. So, Councilman Destin?
I'd certainly be open to listening to the presentation on it. When you make mooring ball harbor, then it's how many mooring balls, and there's a great competition perhaps for them, but
For sure.
I'd like to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's navigating our harbor out inside and outside of the channel. There's boats moored all over the place. I mean, you got to navigate like where the commercial boats moor out in the middle of the harbor. You're in and out. And I like the idea of having a designated mooring area. So I'd be interested in what Alex has to say for sure.
You want me to go ahead and make that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to step on your toes.
I'll make the invitation, Alex. Go
All
ahead.
right.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, that was the only thing from the study that I kind of saw as something to potentially add on to. With that, I think we are good with that. Do you guys want to do a motion to have them come, or city manager's already written it?
No, the harbor.
Oh, yeah, is there any additional motions? I know Councilman Bagby said he's done.
I move that the city council approve the attached final recommendations and prioritized list for the harbor carrying capacity study.
Okay. All right, and Councilman Bagby, anything else?
Yeah, I guess I would disagree because some of these things we can't do. So why are we going to approve a prioritized list of things we know we cannot do? For instance, we know the harbor master, legally, we can call it whatever we want to call it, but it's not a harbor master.
Unless we were to designate.
Right, unless we were to designate. We know that we're not doing the fuel water separators we know that, half of these things we can't do. The sign moorage, okay, yeah, I got that.
Jim, make the alternative motion and pull those out.
Oh, Jesus, now I gotta go through.
Roll the dice.
Yeah, okay, I would just make a substitute motion that we direct the staff to do objective 1, recommendation number 1, install and better define channel markers equipped with no moorage signs and a no wake sign on the bridge along with the current recommendation from USACE, which passed the committee 4-0. The moorage signs, I agree with. Everything else, the safety video, we're either doing it or we can't do it.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
so that's my substitute motion is to do the moorage signs. But if there's something else in here, I can't remember every single item that we can do.
Should we task them to do the mooring option first, so we're not jumping to us to give it back to them to bring it back to us? Is that something we could task them to see if we?
Who's they?
I guess the harbor capacity study, or just another committee to do the mooring option. Should we designate that a priority that we want to see them, see if they like that?
Well, let me ask the city manager this. The committee produced these recommendations, right? And half of these recommendations we passed at the last meeting, right? So I guess I either want to do that substitute motion, or I would do a motion that says, have the capacity and the staff review everything we've already done, and then bring us back a prioritized list of things we can do. Okay? Because this is the same prioritized list that they gave us,
I think it comes from the study, right?
Yeah.
That's the Army Corps'
Yeah.
Right.
pushed over, yeah.
So that would be my substitute motion, to direct the staff to get with the Harbor Capacity Study Steering Committee, whatever it's called, and bring us back an updated, prioritized list of what they want us to do.
I'll withdraw my motion.
All right, so we got to withdraw a motion. So I have a motion on the table. And you got a second with Dewey? All right, seeing no further discussion, calling the vote. All right, ayes have it unanimously.
All right.
All right, any announcements?
Few announcements. We got the city's currently got most of its surplus vehicles and equipment listed on an online auction site called govdeals.com. So if you're looking to purchase some old equipment such as landscape equipment, trucks, dewatering pumps, trailers, lawn maintenance machinery, take a look at govdeals.com. The bidding will be open until June the 9th. We've got prep underway to bring in some new high-speed internet fiber service to the residents of Destin, which I'm looking forward to. We got a couple of outfits that have been in talks with community development to start these processes, and our public information manager will be coordinating with residents before these projects begin. And that is all I have, sir.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right.
Wait a minute. Do you also want to announce that you're closed June 19th?
Thank you. Yes, we are closed June the 19th. I'm trying to get used to this new holiday, so the meeting will be the next day on Tuesday, and that will be the 20th. Thank you.
That will affect all of us.
All righty, I appreciate that. All right, and with nothing else, we'll go to the public hearing. So, Kyle, if you want to take it away.
We have the 5A, first off, this is the first reading of ordinance number 2307CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to livery vessels. Brian, for findings of fact, recognizing the Destin Harbor Carrying Capacity Study final report prepared by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and authorizing additional studies and evaluation of the Destin Harbor. Brian, for a 5-year temporary moratorium on livery vessel permits, directing staff to develop recommendations for regulation of livery vessels, modifying the definition of livery vessels for compliance with state law. Brian, for severability, providing for expiration of moratorium on June 30, 2028, and providing for an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
All right, thank you. Seeing this is a public hearing, if anyone in the public wants to comment on this specific public hearing topic, this is your time to do so. Yes, sir. Name, address, and make sure the light's on.
Mike Abity, 530 Harbor Boulevard. As some of you that have been around for a while can remember, in years past, this room would be basically full with livery vessel operators. So what that sends a message to you is nobody here, I don't think you've heard, there's one worse person here that's going to speak against the moratorium. Everybody's okay with the moratorium now. We do not have a problem of the moratorium. What I do have concern about is what vessels are included and excluded from the moratorium. And it seems there's a lot of confusion about this and a lot of confliction about this. So what's a livery vessel? What's not a livery vessel? Livery vessels are not just pontoon boats and jet skis, which I think over the years, a lot of the council members and the city staff believe pontoon boats and jet skis. A fishing boat can be, a 25-foot fishing boat can be a livery vessel. A 16-foot John boat can be a livery vessel. A 40-foot pleasure boat can be a livery vessel. If you rent that vessel to an individual who drives that boat and takes control of that vessel, that's a livery vessel. The state now has come up, as John told y'all before, the state, as of January 1st, has a livery vessel licensing process. They include boating clubs, which you have not included. They include paddle boards and kayaks, which you have not included. Okay. The biggest concern seems to be, I'm not a livery vessel, I'm a bareboat charter. Bareboat charters are automatically livery vessels. I got a reservation from a lady this afternoon, 3 hours ago, comes in. She's renting a pontoon boat from me on Thursday. Her question was, she says, I would like to hire a captain. I'm going to send her a list of 5 individuals by law, Coast Guard law, that I have to do. That rental now becomes a bareboat charter. She is renting the boat. She is in charge of that vessel. She hires her own captain. She has to hire somebody on her own. I have to give her Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard regulations. I have to give her a list of at least 3 captains. They may or may not be a licensed U.S. Coast Guard captain. They don't have to be a licensed captain. It can be I call them designated drivers. They can be a captain. They don't have to be. We use people who are either captains. I have a couple of guys that are captains. I have 3 or 4 people that are just very knowledgeable boaters of the Destin area and the Destin waters. That becomes a bareboat charter. Over the last 4 years, since you've started these moratoriums, there's never been a bareboat charter that's been stopped doing business in this area, and there's at least 3 or 4 dozen of operating in and around Destin and Destin, handful of them operating out of slips on Destin Harbor. And they've been doing this for several years now. And absolutely nothing has been done from the council on down, staff, code enforcement, nobody has done anything to curtail this, to stop these rogue operators. So the good guys, the honest guys, the legal guys that are doing everything by the book, not fighting a moratorium, but we are fighting people who are stealing, taking money out of our pockets by running illegal vessels. And you guys as a whole, not every one of you, because some of you weren't even on the council years ago, but today, the buck falls and stops with you guys. You have to come up with a way to get these illegal operators and put them out of business. That's only fair. If you're going to make a law, if you're going to make us follow rules and regulations, it's only fair that you try to make everybody follow rules and regulations. You know, I realize I'm out of time. I'll give them out 3 minutes too. Go ahead. Thank you. So I'm asking council to come up with some rules and regulations and talk to Mr. Williams, and he's willing to do things and help us a certain way. But I want y'all to, when you make your moratorium, specify what vessels you want in and out and what is included and what is excluded, so that we all know what's legal and what's not legal. And if you want bareboat charters to be legal, guys, just an example, okay? Next year I'm going to have 16 slips. I can go out and buy 16 pontoon boats and put them in those slips and call them bareboat charters if you don't consider them livery vessels. And I don't think that's what you want to happen. So just take that into consideration. On a second issue, I propose, I'd like to suggest to the council, make a recommendation that, like you did a harbor capacity study, maybe you can do a Joe's Bayou usage study. And I would value, you can do it with volunteers. You don't even have to spend $250,000. You don't have to spend $250. Maybe some of you want to volunteer. I would like to volunteer as long as we had a code enforcement officer with us from 7 in the morning till 12 noon on Saturdays and Sundays at Joe's Bayou for 3 or 4 weeks, and we take a survey, 5 or 6 questions. Resident, non-resident, what are you using your boat for today? What are you going? You're going to Crab Island? You're going fishing, offshore, inshore? What are you going water skiing? I guarantee you there's quite a few pontoon boats that are being launched at Joe's Bayou every day for bareboat charters, illegal liveries. Nothing has been done to stop them, okay? I went to Joe's Bayou Saturday morning, Saturday before last on Memorial Day weekend, and I asked the old boy there, I said, have we seen code enforcement here today? He said, code enforcement hasn't been here on weekends all season. Just sharing the information with you. But if you want to set up something, I'll be happy to get with either one of y'all, any one of y'all with code enforcement to sit down to come up with a plan. Let's go to Joe's Bayou and let's find out you can take an inventory of what they using it for and you catch a lot of illegal operators, you stop a lot of illegal operators. You'd be surprised some of the people in this town that are operating illegal charters.
All right, thank you. And
I commend you for speaking up on this issue because, yes, you're right. I was out there, my husband and I were launching on Sunday, and there were 2 boats. There was no way that guy was their dad. And I said, look, you have a Tennessee tag. All these girls are not your daughters. I said, and I know you're a rogue operator, and I'm a councilwoman. So I advise you, if you don't leave right now, I will call and have the sheriff's department come down. And he goes, oh, no, we don't need that problem. And he loaded all those people up, told them to go get in their cars, and they left. I don't know where they went and launched from, but I know that Wayne is not there all day. When he is, he doesn't have any power. I mean, I've watched him try and stop people. So we do need a code person maybe hired to be physically there and maybe working with one of y'all to ask all the questions, but it definitely the presence, having a code truck, those guys would pull in there and they would pull right back out because they would realize that the end is near.
Last year, ma'am, last year they put a decoy truck out there, and it was just a matter of days before the rogue operators know that's a decoy. So, I mean, you can't just put a vehicle.
That's what I'm saying. If we need to hire a specific code person, especially for the summer, on weekends, to physically be there to stop this
instead of
from
a harbor
happening.
master,
Yes.
that would do a lot more damage to the rogue operators by having someone constantly there.
Well, the other problem is we have them launching at Leonard Destin Park because I've watched them pull up there and pick people up.
And your new park and your Leonard Destin Park, and your old
Calhoun.
park on Calhoun, they're picking up people because people can park there, walk down to the water, get on those boats, and they're right there at Crab Island.
Well, it's just like the inflatables that have popped up out there on the outer edge of where MWR is for the military base side. Nobody's really monitoring that because they were at Joe's Bayou and we started asking questions, and all of a sudden they started moving that flotation device a little further around.
Exactly.
And I don't know if they've got permission from the military to be out there on the backside of their base or not, but I'm pretty sure it won't take long before MWR realizes, hey, you're kind of like encroaching on our property back here. So I appreciate you coming forward for the livery, folks. We need to put code at Joe's Bayou, undoubtedly, starting now, because it is a big problem, but we don't have the people right now to do it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, jump on up. Yep, name and address.
Texas Sergeant Saglia, William, 1212 Maple. I live on Eglin Air Force Base. The base does not own that water. It owns up to the shoreline. That's called Postal Point. That's a ramp launch. Anybody in the military can get on that and launch from there too. So understand the problem. That's all.
Thank you.
We have Troy is here if you want to ask him any questions about what was said.
Yeah,
I prefer we in the public hearing, and then we can talk about what we want code.
Yeah, as a
to do.
second.
Let's get back to the
Yep.
agenda item.
All right, so anything? Yep.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm Gene Eisman, 775 Gulf Shore Drive. They were asking, could we possibly assign off-duty sheriffs to maybe supplement code? And I wanted to personally come up here and acknowledge what Maya Schindler has done as far as the wristband program. I know you guys got sent an email. I went and met with the sheriff 2 weeks ago. And he said that this time last year, there were 28 DUIs issued. This time this year, there have been 100 more boardings, and there were 3. Now, this weekend, they conducted a sting and did, I think, 12. But we're way low, and the wristband program's working, so we're on top of it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not part of it.
Hit that button now. All right, no, we're gonna stay on the public hearing. We're still getting a little off.
Gotta read your email, Johnny.
Seeing nothing else, I'm gonna close the public hearing. So, This time I'll entertain my motion for the public hearing A.
I move to approve ordinance 23-07-CN on first reading and direct the city clerk to advertise the ordinance for second reading on June 20th, 2023.
Second.
All right, with the motion and second, Councilman Guile?
I would like to get advice from Kim Kopp on this, because it was my understanding that any motorized vehicle without a Coast Guard approved captain is considered a livery vessel. So I would really like to hear her take before I vote on anything.
Sure, I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the moratorium ordinance actually has a clear definition of what a livery vessel is. And to Mr. Abady's point, he was correct on that definition being, we refer back to section 32702 of Florida statutes, which says a livery vessel means any vessel leased, rented, or chartered to another person for consideration. The only thing our moratorium does is it creates two exceptions to that broad definition. So under that definition, anything, rented for money is a livery vessel. Then we add an exception for a vessel that is under the control at all times by a United States Coast Guard licensed captain. If it is within the control of a U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain the whole time, then it is exempt from our moratorium and is not considered a livery vessel. Our other exemption is for paddleboards, kayaks, canoes, or any other vessel not powered by an internal combustion engine or a sail. And sailboards are excluded. So basically, every vessel is a livery vessel. A bareboat is a livery vessel for our city purposes. And bareboats have separate regulations that the Coast Guard will enforce, but that doesn't have anything to do with our moratorium. So for us, a bareboat is a livery vessel unless there's a U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain in control the whole time. So does that answer the definition question?
Thank you very much. Yeah, public.
You're welcome.
I can't, especially under the law part. This is the public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, you can open another round of public comment if you want. But
shoot.
Okay. A little clarification on that. There's two types of, when you have inspected vessels and uninspected vessels. On the uninspected vessel category, you have two categories. Old George Carlin was an old comedian. He used to do a play on words. And he used to, one of the plays that he did was, is something flammable, inflammable, and uninflammable. And he said, you don't need three words to discuss two things. Either the damn thing flams or it doesn't flam. So you have a livery vessel or you have a six-pack charter. Okay? A six-pack charter requires a U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain. If I put a U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain, if this lady that asked for a captain, and I find her a U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain, give her a list of 3 U.S. Coast Guard, and they get on that boat, they are not operating my livery vessel under the capacity of the U.S. Coast Guard license because they can put 12 people on that vessel. A six-pack charter can only carry 6 people on it. That's a consideration. It's not a livery vessel. It's a six-pack charter. Has to have a licensed captain. Bareboat charters do not have to have a licensed captain, but even if that captain is licensed, he can carry 12 passengers. But if you call that a six-pack charter, he can only carry 6 people. So if it's a livery vessel, it can carry 12. If it's a six-pack charter, it can only carry 6. That's what makes bareboat charters, all of them, are livery vessels.
Thank you. Mike, will you clarify that one more time? You're saying, so if you hire let's say your clients they hire a U.S. Coast Guard captain.
I'm going to give them 5, let's say I give them 5 names.
Licensed captain, it doesn't matter.
I'm going to give them 5 names. Let's say 2 are licensed captains and 3 are not. They can pick anyone they want.
Can hire someone who's not a licensed captain.
Correct.
To drive the boat for
Designated
them legally.
driver.
Okay.
To operate the livery vessel. Okay, it is operated. It's just one of my livery vessels has now taken on a subcategory of being a bareboat charter, but it's still a livery vessel. Okay? If you hire a taxi cab, that automobile he's driving is still an automobile. You just hire him to be your driver. Okay? On a bareboat charter, it has to be a six-pack. On a six-pack charter, it has to be a licensed captain. On a bareboat charter, it does not have to be a licensed captain. Designated driver is all that's required.
What you just said is contradictory to what Kim just said. Kim just stated that if they don't have a licensed Coast Guard captain, then it is a livery vessel no matter what. So even if you give them 5 and they pick one that's not a Coast Guard approved captain, it's a livery vessel.
Even if they pick one as a captain, it's a livery vessel.
Well, can you guys let me just make one clarification, okay? Because you're both right. Because we're talking about two different definitions. There's a state law, which is going to say that all of them are livery vessels. Because I read you the state law definition, and that's anything rented out. We, the city of Destin, created an exemption that does not exist under state law. And that's why there's two different things going on here. For the city of Destin only, not for the U.S. Coast Guard, but for the city of Destin only, a livery vessel that does not have a United States Coast Guard licensed captain on it is not going to be held to our moratorium. So if they have a U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain, then they're going to be exempt from the moratorium, but they are still a livery vessel under state law.
So I can rent 16 of my slips and I can go buy 16 pontoon boats next year, and I can call them bareboat charters, and I can put licensed captains on them, and I can carry 12 people with those licensed captains. That's illegal. Okay?
Kim, in our code.
As far as state is concerned, that is illegal. Now, you guys have the power to make the city do whatever the city wants. You're in control. You can say bareboat charters are not livery vessels, but just because you say it, don't make it so. It may make it so in the city codes.
Thank you. Kim, why do we have two exceptions that don't comply with state law? What generated that?
So, well, when the moratorium was first enacted years ago, the city council did not want to include paddleboards, kayaks, canoes, and other vessels. They didn't feel that those vessels were causing the same kinds of issues and safety hazards and environmental concerns, so they exempted them. Now, the U.S. Coast Guard licensed captain was intended, again, to further the same goals with respect to public safety, right? When the vessel has a U.S. licensed captain on it, the city council believed that that provided additional safety measures that your average tourist and unlicensed operator, would be causing. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, let me ask this question. Do you have a problem if we said just comply with the state law and not have any city-only exceptions?
I don't have a problem, but that's a question for the city council.
Okay.
This is this way because of very specific city council direction. Now,
I got it. There's a lot of things we do to ourselves.
Right, but if you think about the fishing charters then, that all have captains, if you remove that exception for the captains, then all of those vessels are going to be subject to the moratorium if they're leased out or rented out for compensation. Chartered.
See why we
This
did
was
that to
going to be
ourselves.
this was the point I was trying to make with this, is if that is true, then why don't I buy a fleet of 10 charter boats and give out a list of 20 licensed boat captains so they can get under the radar of the six-pack charter and take as many people as they want.
Okay, so Kim, let me ask this question. When you say it has to have a licensed Coast Guard captain, does that have to be assigned to that boat, or it just has to have one on it when it gets stopped?
So under the current moratorium, it has to be under control at all times by that captain. At all times.
Okay,
that's how it is now.
That wasn't my question. So I buy 12 boats, but I don't have any assigned captains. But I hire a captain, so now I meet the exemption. But when I buy those boats, do I have to buy them with assigned captains, or I can just hire whoever I want, whenever I want? See, because they're getting
see.
through a loophole.
The city has never gone that far in the regulation to this point where when they bought a vessel, we ensured there was a licensed captain assigned to it at that time. We have more looked at what's actually under the control of a captain when it's in operation. If you want to go that far with the regulation, we can modify it to do that. If you think there's a loophole that exists, we can have them assigning them early on. I don't know how that affects the fishing charter. We might want to ask some of our council members up there in that industry their thoughts on that.
All right, and with that, I got up next Councilman Destin.
Yes, and that's exactly the problem. If you do what we're suggesting, then all the bay boats and potentially any charter boats are now under the moratorium, and that's why we shied away from it. There are some unique situations that if you really think it's a loophole that's going to be exploited, I don't think it is, because you just up the price of a pontoon rental by $200 if you put a license cabin on it. Those numbers don't work. But you could say owner operated. That would allow the charter boat and the bay boat guys that where the owner is the operator of the boat, he would be exempted. And if you're not, you wouldn't. And I would think you could do something like that. But I really don't think it's a problem right now. If it becomes one, we can certainly amend it. But, you know, you've just upped the price of a pontoon boat by 25 to 40%. That dog's not going to hunt.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think having a captain on the board kind of solves the problem as well as the economically. All right, seeing no other buttons lit up, we will call the vote. We got the motion, right? Yeah. All right, yeah, okay.
This is for the recommended motion.
Yep, we're at the recommended. All right, thank you. Yep. Yeah, what day is it?
Waiting on Matt.
All right, ayes have it, so moved unanimously. All right, Kyle.
All right, next is 5B. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2308 CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for amendment of section 1566 of the city's Code of Ordinances, exception to alcoholic beverages in public places at Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for conflicting provisions, and providing for an effective date. And this is a public hearing.
All right. And it's just no glass and what's not allowed in the alcoholic container?
No glass containers, ceramic mugs, or other frangible containers are permitted, and that's consistent with the LDC, which,
No glass. Yeah, nothing that's going to break and hurt. Okay. All right, at this time, seeing that this is a public hearing, at this time I'll open up the public comments on this specific topic. Seeing none, I'll close the public comments at that time and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2308 CC on first reading and direct staff to advertise for the second reading.
I have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All right, ayes have it, so moved. All righty, Councilman Sweetser.
Yes, I just have one quick thing tonight. I would like to appoint Carrie Ann Harbinger to the short-term rental task force. She's not here tonight, but she gives her regards.
All right, got a second? See no further discussion? All right, congratulations. Ayes have it, so moved.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman Guile. All right, Kevin. Just kidding.
I want to talk about, no, I do have just a couple quick questions. One, potholes issues that I just busted another tire and bent a rim right there at Airport Road, the turn lane before Airport Road off Commons Drive. There's a huge pothole there. Is that our responsibility or FDOT's responsibility, or is that county? Commons and Airport.
Where is it, Councilman Gall?
It's just off the paved section. It's where the grass is. It drops down. It's right where the grass section meets the paved section. The
Okay,
asphalt
I'll take a look at it on the way home, and we'll get it addressed.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out whose jurisdiction. There's another one right there at, when you're pulling out of Indian Bayou Drive, when you make that stop sign, the church is on your right, you make a stop sign right past this road right here. There's another one right there on the side of the street. I'm just trying to figure out whose jurisdiction these things are in. Because I've bent 2 rims so far and busted 2 tires, and I'm sure if I'm doing it, I'm not the only one doing it. Because I'm drunk driving, I guess? I mean, no.
Okay, I'll get with you after the meeting if it's okay to talk about the one in Indian Bayou. Get the exact location.
That was a joke on the drunk driving, but other than that, the only other thing I was going to ask is if we had all of our nominees verified for STR committee, and I really appreciate you finalizing that today. Thank you very much. I think we're a go. We had our very first meeting. I think it was very successful, and I think we'll have some valuable information before October. Thank you.
All right.
Nothing for me tonight, Mayor.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to talk just a brief about the boxes that our city staff did a phenomenal job. Ryan's over there grinning. I know you're not on Facebook, but we had hundreds of positive remarks after Tamara went around and took the pictures of the laminated, all of those that were the pilot program. I think starting with Colton's box, having the family help us design what would be appropriate to help that corner be very special for them. And then the work that our city staff did with the folks that do that across the panhandle. And I know that a lot of people, I've heard from lots of people, thank goodness, we thought we were going to get it painted, and I told people we had worked at trying to get them painted, but the paint and trying to get it authorized and the type of paint for those utility boxes. So I'm very thrilled that we have such a hardworking staff that dug down and found out what we needed to do, how we needed to do it, and found the right people. And with this pilot program, hopefully we'll get enough feedback, and then maybe in the spring, after seeing that these will be successful and they don't chip or peel or whatever, we'll move on and put more throughout the city, because I do know that there are a lot of people that have called me and said, hey, I'll pay, can I get the box in my yard done? So thank you very much, and thank you, council. This current council was a big part of approving this to happen. I know that had been started years ago by another council, and it just kind of floundered and didn't get very far. So thank you to the staff we have now and the council that approved it. We appreciate it, and looking forward to the continuation of cleaning up and prettying up our city. Thank you. That's all, Mayor.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Councilman King.
Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
All right. Speaking of potholes, no, I wasn't going to stop it under the consent agenda, but it did kind of get my thoughts rolling. And that's kind of this war for and against speed bumps. And I'm kind of under the logic of, if we need speed bumps, we probably didn't design the road correctly to begin with. Some of our roads are as wide as 12 feet, which would be the same width as an interstate. Most of our roads are about 10 feet, which are also the same width as Highway 98 on the island that's going 55. So just kind of a long story short, as we look at the design for our roads, and as we look at our LDC, or I'm sorry, yeah, the LDC, I'm really just going to take a stance on trying to see, hopefully through the Public Works Committee and any other committee that could touch this, the ability to reduce the lane widths in the form of public safety, as well as if the lanes are reduced, that's less asphalt, that's less money, that means we can resurface more with the same amount. And so, I just want to really start taking a hard effort on trying to localize what has typically been a nationalized standard. And that way we can really start transforming our roads for what we know we want, which is the community and pedestrians first. So with that, I'm not going to get into all the fun information I've learned on strong towns or his other book about. Ryan's over there grinning. I'm on his second book, Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. Hopefully Ryan will get onto that book next. And so I don't think it's anyone in particular fault. Obviously, Ryan hasn't designed a single road that we operate on currently. But I think that's something that is a win-win. It can make our pedestrian safes in our neighborhoods safer, cheaper, and more smooth, and a little bit, and have our bucks go a longer way. So I'm going to get a lot of information together and bring that through Public Works and Safety and see their thoughts. And I'm excited to get your guys' opinion at some point, whether tonight or at a future council meeting. Councilman.
You might want to talk to the people in Fort Walton. They've reduced the lanes on downtown in an effort to do the very thing you said. I'm not so sure how effective it's been, but their input would be pretty good. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be 9th Street or Highway 98 downtown?
Yes. Right.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, while that might be the highway, I'm very much considering our, what they would call, the vocabs. My interior, give me my vocab words here. What's the?
Local roads.
Yeah, the local, and then what's the next one up?
Collector.
Collector, there we go. Those two. If we start there, everything else can be it, because at the end of the day, we have streets and we have roads. Roads get you from point A to point B, and streets are a place for kids to play and wealth to be generated for the individual. And the whole community development team is now laughing. Councilman Sweetser.
I know I brought up the speed bumps and everything, but I'll tell you one thing that is really going to help detour traffic on Kelly Street. Not that I do it.
Shorter roads.
Every local drive under the speed limit, around 3 to 6. It'll stop them from going down Kelly Street.
Well, and they would drive that way if the road encouraged them to drive at a safe capacity. When everyone's in autopilot and we've over-engineered our roads so it's safe, God forbid someone goes 45 on a 30 or say 55 on an airport, we still have forgiveness. So if we're in autopilot and I feel safe at a higher than posted speed, we're allowing them to feel safe because we're in our best interest, keep it safe if they were to overdo it. But in doing so, we're encouraging speeding regarding of the posted sign. And that's just kind of some of the philosophy that I've been learning through these books is we're over-engineering because we want safety, but because of that, we're encouraging speeding, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to intend in the first place. So just throwing that out there. Those are my quick little thoughts on that, and I'll be running that through the committee. So stay tuned. All right. Kim, you still with us? See, no.
I am, and hey. I don't have anything, though. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
She's celebrating the kids' graduation.
Yeah.
Congrats to the kids.
Yes, and their birthday this week as well.
Yeah, we're excited for you to be official Destinites here, if you haven't already.
Yep, my official day is June 14th, but yeah.
All right.
All right, nothing for me.
All right. And public comments. You've been here to...
Come up.
Yeah, jump on up. This is your time. Hit the button, have the light turn red, and just give me your name and address, and the floor is yours. A button that...
Touch that, okay. Okay, thanks. I'm Rupert Phillips. I live in Sterling Shores. I've been here since 1987. So back in 1992, I bought the bowling alley here in 92. And a few years, some of you guys will remember this, some of you won't. A few years later, I actually remodeled the whole thing. I put 3 old cars up on top of it, and then we took the part that is now Club LA and we made it yesterday's nightclub. And so we had an Elvis impersonator, and the thing stayed open to 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning like nightclubs do. After a few years of running the nightclub, just wasn't drawing the audience there because I guess the 60s and 70s music had been passé and Elvis was passé for something happening every night. So we shut that down and we started just doing concerts. It ended up being a concert venue, or we would lease it out to other people. And we've been doing that for like 19 years. About 10 years ago, Destin became a really hot spot for these, for the bands. And so we started bringing in tribute bands that put on shows. I don't know if any of you have gone to any of the shows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so actually that facility is within the top 100 ticket sellers in the world. So we have as many as 700 to 800 people there. We got a great show going. And so everything was fine until I guess it was 2021. Somebody moved to town and we started getting complaints for noise. Now, you got to remember when this thing was built, Destin Commons wasn't even built. Nothing was around us. And we've been there operating this business all this time. And I think the people of, it's unusual for a town our size. We get acts that Pensacola and Panama City don't get. So, but we started getting noise complaints. And and code enforcement doing their job, they came out and they gave us warnings. I didn't really, of course, I didn't know where the complaint was coming from at that time, and really didn't know until very recently. But anyway, we kept getting, I think there were 22 complaints from 21 until May. 21 of them was from the same person, who is 1,100 feet away from our building. And so we have, you guys, your land code, if you remember several years ago, you guys changed the height of buildings from like, I think we were like at 135 feet or 115 feet. It was some high number, and y'all moved it to 55 feet. And you did the same thing at Destin Harbor. So you did it over at Destin Harbor, and then you went all the way out to my 5 acres and did it there. So even though that the value of our density from that height, it probably cost us a lot of money. We didn't fight about it. We just let it go. But I think the issue now is that the noise ordinance that Destin has for us is subjective. I don't know if you guys have really looked at it that close, but the code enforcement officer can decide by his own ear if there's a noise or not. And if you go to Destin Harbor, it's subjective. There's actually a meter. The meter can go up to 70 decibels, I think, up to 2 a.m., then it drops to 65. And I don't know it exactly, but so I bought a meter. And we went to the, and I might say in May when the code enforcement officer, they'd been given warnings, and we were kind of saying, okay, we don't know where it came from. But this time the code enforcement officer gave us a citation for $100. So we're going to have to fight So we've already hired the lawyers, and we're going to go to court. We've already asked for a court hearing on it, because we think it's unfounded, and we think we think we'll prevail. But I think we're asking the council to look, because we're an entertainment facility just like Destin Harbor is. And I'll give you a couple of statistics in a minute, but we think we ought to be under those same rules that they're under. So if you look at where we're located and you look north, it's all commercial. Behind us is Gulf Power and the State Park. To the east of us is Alvin's Island shop and the shopping center there where the bookstore is and all that. And I think within 300 foot, there may be 2 houses. So we bought a sound meter. And so Saturday night we had a show. I don't know if you were there or not, but we had a show Saturday night. So we took the sound meter inside the facility, and it registered at above 90 decibels. This is inside by the stage. So then we went outside right at the door, and it registered at 65 decibels. Then we went to our property line, and it was down to like 55 decibels. And then we went to where the complainant was, and it was at 45 decibels. Then we just went to the regular traffic noise that's out there. In our area, it runs about 40 decibels. So you don't know. So to have this subjective for one person that can come and say, by my ears, I know you're making too much noise. I just don't think it's right. You could have somebody that maybe has a grudge against somebody and just wear them out with that. So what happens now, and this is the reason we're going to have to fight this, what happens to us now is that we get a fine. He comes back again, and the next fine is $250. The next one's $500, and then you start going to jail. So it's really problematic for us. And, we're good citizens. Every Tuesday we allow the high school we give them free lanes so they can have their bowling classes
And a
inside
couple
our
questions
place.
that they want to ask you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Councilman Bagby?
Well, I think Kyle would tell us, we were doing great right until you said you'd hired the lawyers and you were going to have to fight it, and so we can't really discuss this with you. The one thing I would ask, and I'm sure he's getting ready to advise us that, but the one thing I would ask is, what is refresh our memory on what the sound allowances are at the Festive Harvest Marketplace or whatever, South Harbor, North Harbor, I'm sorry, Harbor Walk, mixed use area, and what it is in this area.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would like to say that Mr. Rupert came in, we spoke, he expressed his concern, or Mr. Phillips, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And then when we, after further research, discovered that, again, since February of 2021, there were 22 complaints, 21 from the same person, most of which were noise complaints. Some were completely unfounded. I expressed to him I was not unsympathetic to his, concerns, but there was a current ordinance in place, and if he had any, concerns about the differences in the ordinance, he should come speak to the council. I know with, exactly like you said, if it's in his area of the woods, basically, it's the officers hearing on what they determine to be the violation. In the harbor, it is a specific number. We do not have a decibel reader at this moment, so, those are the facts as I understand them.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, so, and I will give Mr. Phillips' attorney credit. He did contact me very late, right before the council meeting. So I was aware of this issue. I would say, again, we do have that, it's a citation, I think, that was issued, is my understanding, so technically
So
we do
I-
have that legal issue.
By the way, I was told that I had to go through this process. I didn't want to. I wanted to talk to you guys first, but I don't, what they told me is you can't cancel that citation. I've got to go through it. Now, if you can, believe me, I'd love for that to happen and just be done with it and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, I'm not
But
going to
it's a-
address the
it's a bit-
citation from up here. I'm just going to ask the staff, send us the sound excerpts from the sound ordinances for both the harbor mixed-use area and I think you're probably in Crystal Beach Commercial, or whatever area applies to him. I'm sorry, Crystal Beach Resort. I think you may be in Crystal
What
Beach.
applies to us is it's up to the officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just suggest that we can send council the noise ordinance if you're so inclined to make some sort of legislative change to it. That is, of course, your prerogative. So.
And my question is, if we are going to judge it on a compliance officer's listening, and we might need to buy a meter.
How much
We need
was
to
yours?
invest in that immediately.
I think, quite frankly, I think the ordinance is flawed. I think the ordinance that you have for the harbor, where you actually, it's not subjective, it's objective, and you can actually measure it. And I bought a meter that I don't want to use every day, and I'm happy to donate it to the city.
There you go.
Well, that might
My
help
only
us.
comment, have
Yeah.
we reviewed, as Kim, if you're still there, have you reviewed the ordinance? You know, had the pleasure of going through the agony of writing that ordinance back then. And I don't recall the subjectivity of it in certain areas.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go, Kim.
No, so I was going to say, you actually weren't on council when it was revised, and that might be why you don't remember it, but that was back when Jeff Burns was here. He wrote the new subjective portion based on legal research that was substantiating it. However, so right now, the city code has a subjective standard everywhere except for the South Harbor mixed-use area. And the South Harbor mixed-use area requires a decibel reading. Of course, like Troy said, we don't have the actual equipment to enforce in the harbor. But if the council wants to ordinance and have a decibel citywide, we can go back to that, but I would just suggest that we get the proper equipment.
Well, you know, my concern is it actually has the ability, when you start adding these fines up, then you start getting jail terms, it actually has the ability to put us out of business.
And sir, to your particular case, I am going to speak with your attorney tomorrow and see if we can resolve this. So I would appreciate if we didn't talk about your specifics tonight. And if you find that it's not resolved to your satisfaction, you can always come back.
We'd love to be resolved with it I'd love to resolve it without legal counsel, but I was told that you couldn't just drop a citation. You can just drop a citation and we can move on. Beg your pardon.
Yeah, you're on our
Okay,
radar. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, my memory is it's 200 feet, and if I can hear it inside my house, then it's too loud. And I would say, you know, that's still objective, because depending on how well insulated my house is.
And they may need
Cut
new
it up.
windows. There's new windows now. Yeah.
All right.
We got the
It's been a while. Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Breeze Court. I have 3 things to say. Quick like a bunny. First of all, I want to tell you that I met with Director of Code Compliance, Troy Williams. And if this man can't get the job done, no one can. He has my full 100,000% confidence. I am very impressed. I believe he has the wherewithal to do it, and you're hearing it from me here on the public record. So, there you go. I also want to acknowledge Captain Fulgham and his team here in the East District. I think they've been doing a fantastic job of keeping us safe on the water, on the beaches, and on our streets. And then, I was just going to add this only because you had mentioned it. I want to acknowledge that previous council member Preble Ramswell, for her hard work on those utility boxes. Her and your, when you were on Parks and Recreation. Oh, yes. So I wanted to acknowledge.
We brought it to her, and that's why I got on council, to make sure it happened. So that's why it happened.
Perfect. So I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledged everybody who was involved. And I apologize, I was not thinking out loud. Well, I haven't seen you in that seat because you came back and I haven't been here, so. Well, no, it was all legit. I haven't been here in what, four or five meetings? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing happened to me. You were hearing from me loud and clear through email.
Just a comment while she's walking away. You notice how, you know why I know code enforcement is doing their job and she has 1,000%? Because we've gotten 3 emails in the last week and a half, people complaining about the fines and the tickets that they've gotten. So I knew, and they're all locals. I've lived here on John Street for 20 years and I can't park my car. And that, you know, and that's the other side of code enforcement doing its job, and it's going to get worse the more they do their job, folks.
So let me just make one last statement for the public. I believe that all the rules should apply to all the people equally all the time.
Someone
we are
get her
not
a t-shirt
targeting,
that
we are
says
not
that.
selectively enforcing. Thanks.
All right, John Stevens, 4025 Indian Trail. You guys are talking about the state statute that was worried about whether or not it was going to cover charter boats or not. The state statute pretty much says that what does it say? Livery means a person who advertises or offers a livery vessel for use by another in exchange for any type of consideration when such person does not also provide the lessee or renter with a captain, a crew, or any type of staff or personnel to operate, oversee, maintain, or manage the vessel. So all charter vessels, uninspected, inspected vessels will be not included as a livery. And then a livery is required to have a contract that we have to provide the Coast Guard if we get boarded. So charter vessels do not have to have that. Now I was kind of thinking of a loophole if I wanted to open up another business adding more pontoon boats. I could theoretically say that one of the 12 people, okay, you're the skipper. Now I don't have to have a medallion for that boat. So just something to think about.
Yep, the key here is while state law defines them, state law does not have a moratorium in place, and we do.
Right.
And that's the difference.
And that is the difference, and there's one other difference. Once again, there's also 2 definitions in state law. There's the definition I was referring to, which is in 32702, and only says a livery vessel is rented out for compensation. Then there's the definition that John is referring to, which is a different state law dealing with the new Senate Bill 606 that was just passed, and the Florida Boating Safety Act. So there's lots of definitions, but we're enforcing the cities, which is consistent with 32702.
All right, good deal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we are closing the meeting.